For sure.
So many people are waiting for a license to live. And this gets into your story too, but they are waiting for someone else to give them permission or a license, I call it, right? Like you got to be a licensed mortgage professional, licensed realtor, licensed to drive a car. Our whole lives are all about having a license to do something.
Yeah.
And I love when people are like, I give the license to myself.
For sure.
You know what I mean? And, the thing is, too, is I cannot tell you how many times I actually hear when I get on those little 15-minute Zoom calls with people after reaching out to them on Instagram, how they say, I don't know why I answered you, but I felt like I should. And I think it really goes back to my intention when I started reaching out to people during the pandemic. I was like, I'm not going to stop talking to people. I'm going to still connect with people. And I figured out a way to do it. And it's about, like, helping people that, like, I didn't have that help when I first started out on my journey to build my brand.
Right.
And so I'm excited about this. I'm excited that you're here.
I also told the story last night was when I was in my marriage, it was like I could only see so far. And at the time, my dreams were much smaller, but I didn't realize then. I just saw, like, a small little beach house, like, just low key, my books to be #1 bestsellers. But as soon as I left the marriage, it was like a rock was moved, and all of a sudden, glowing in the distance was Hollywood. And I had never seen that before until I got the divorce. This was not like a forever thing that I always knew I would be a writer, right? Like, I knew that was my thing, that was my special thing. But I never saw my books making it to Hollywood until I left that person. So yeah, I do believe that relationships can either make or break you and either anchor you into a dream or, steer you in the wrong direction, ultimately.
Yeah, and so I'm a big guy on, like, 100% responsibility, and we have to be the ones that take responsibility for things, right? And so when you're in that relationship, did you feel like you were, like, boxed in and your dreams were, like, you'd bring something up and then you'd be invalidated?
Yeah. Were you there? Were you like a fly on the
wall? No, but I study human behavior, so I kind of know.
Literally, that's literally it was, I didn't have his support. I had these big dreams always, and he just maybe was intimidated by them. If I'm being honest, I don't think an ambitious woman can be triggering for some men. And I think in that case it was. He just saw that as a threat. Like, wow, if I let her get too big, she might leave. Well, the catch-22 is she left anyway, and all she really needed was your support.
Wow, yeah.
And your partnership.
So what was it like being hypnotized? Like, do you know that you're, like, what's that like? I've never been hypnotized before.
No, I love it. Honestly, I was just crying like rivers during the hypnosis.
But do you know you're under?
You do, but you're conscious, but you're not. So, like, you are asleep. You're in that, like, sleepy state. But you can, like, obviously follow his prompts. Like, you're not totally knocked out, but you're in that deep, relaxed state where, like, it is piercing through your subconscious. Like, it did make a difference because after that, like, my book hit the #1 bestsellers list. I'm having opportunities like this of, like, being seen and networking with people and growing in my own way. And it does work. And just, like, that worthiness of, like, no, I deserve that.
So while you're under, you go through this scene and you're like, wow. And then what happens? Like, you get this cognition and this understanding.
Yes.
And then that way, now you understand it. Now you don't let it affect you. Is that how it works?
It is very rapid. It's very rapid because when you come to and you wake up and you literally, like, snaps your fingers and you just have this moment of, like, oh, it's almost like akin to when people undergo, like, psychedelics, like, like plant medicine, and they have that, like, come to Jesus. It's like, I had that awareness so I had my come to Jesus going back, piercing through the subconscious layer and being like, this is that exact moment in time.
Gotcha.
Very visceral too. And it was not something it wasn't like a memory that I was, like, hung up on, like, oh man, remember that time I didn't have a birthday? It's like, no, that was what my subconscious told me. It was like, yeah, because you didn't have a birthday. That's why.
Jeez.
Right?
Kind of makes me wonder what I don't remember.
Yeah.
I've had people on my show before and they told me about things that came to them later on, but they had no idea. And they were maybe reading a book and then the memory came and they didn't know if it was real or not. Were you sure it was real?
Oh, 100. Okay. Yeah, I vividly remember. I was like 4 or 5. So, like, I was during the stages of life where, like, you're starting to develop memories. Yeah. And also they say, like, your subconscious programming is 0 to 7 years old.
Yeah.
So that's the age of like, you really lock in then. Like
Right.
what happens then is what shapes the rest of your life. Isn't that nuts? So my book, On His Way Back to Me, is loosely tied to losing my first love. He passed away in 2019. It was some of the deepest, most taboo grief I've ever gone through. And so people don't really feel bad for you when you lose like an ex. Like they're just like, they're not going to send you flowers. No one really cared about, I had to actually hide my grief. And so in my hidden grief, I grieved and I made art. And what I want people to take from the dark romance, right, is that like, there is still love, even though I lost. You know, there's still, that still deserves to be celebrated, even though he's not here anymore. Actually wear his ashes on my neck every day. So he's with me right now. But, you know, it is taboo. And I want to write it, but taboo is real. And so the core of like my inspiration, I always say this too, it's like, I'm more inspired by my mailman than Taylor Swift. Like, I like the realness of life, the rawness of life. And I think a lot of romance is so, you know, it's not tied in reality, which can also maybe be dangerous and toxic to like dating culture or in marriage and relationships when you're looking at this idealized view of relationships, this quote unquote romanticized view and perspective of it. I want to show the reality of it.